Laurie Allen Browne. I'm a friend of the Witch Depot, and we are actually here at the Witch Depot. And by the way, my friends call me Allie. So I will be guiding you through some basic herbs for self-healing and love and self-love, and really basically taking care of yourself in a time of a pandemic and the additional stress that that brings. I have notes because I'm a very tactile person. So there are two modes of studying herbs. You have your medicinal use and your magical use. Herbalism is one of those systems that a long, long time ago in ancient times was a thing before we really discovered modern medicine. One of my favorite examples is the use of white willow bark for pain, and doctors finally discovered that to be a very active ingredient in aspirin. So we can use white willow bark for things like cleansing and things that are more protective magically, but medicinally we use it for pain. One of my favorite authors when it comes to herbs is Scott Cunningham, and I will be showing you books that you can read by Scott Cunningham later. But for now, we'll just review some basic herbs and ways to use them as far as, magical medicinal use during a time of a pandemic. So let's see. The important thing is to do your research before you start to work with herbs. And also, really honestly, go through each herb yourself if you find a good book. Don't take their word for it. This is a very personal practice. And so you're going to see things from my personal practice as well. Let's see. For example, when ingesting something, you want to make sure that it doesn't inhibit any medications that you may be taking, and also it doesn't conflict with any pre-existing conditions that you may have medically. So research, research, research. I would also like to recommend, if you're burning anything magically on a censer or as a loose herb, you may want to do your research there, because things like capsaicin, that are the active ingredient in peppers, or anything that's especially camphorous, is going to be an eye irritant, and we don't want to do that. Not during a time of already crisis, not such a great idea. So some ways that we can use herbs: teas, tinctures, baths, balms, sachets, candle magic, smoke cleansing, protection magic, such as like hanging above a doorway or burning, what we would commonly call sage, and smoke cleansing like that, and powders, and floor to door washes, as I like to call them. So let's begin with a couple of basic herbs. Rosemary. First of all, what doesn't rosemary do? It's one of those very transmutable herbs that every witch or every practicing pagan or any herbalist should have in their repertoire, or repertoire? What's the word that I'm looking for here? Anyway. Repertoire. I like that, it sounds fancy. Basically put it in your cabinet. So magically, this herb is transmutable for any purpose. A long time ago, the ancient Greeks actually used to wear crowns of rosemary on their heads during, exams or any type of lectures and things like that, so that wisdom would somehow come to them. And it turns out this isn't exactly wrong. We use rosemary oil to make a connection during our exams when we're older, when we're at college, etc. It helps recall memory, it turns out. So the ancient Greeks knew a little bit something about rosemary. I would like to say that if we need a pick-me-up in these times, then rosemary is a really, really great herb for that. It can help you with depression, it can help alleviate some pain when put in a bath, it can help soothe sore muscles. And I think when we all carry around collective stress, this is a really great herb for that. Also, not to mention that bomb focaccia recipe needs a little magic. So let's put some extra rosemary in there for that. Chamomile, another transmutable herb. A lot of people like to think chamomile, sleep, dream, etc. But it's actually been used for money. So in a time when the pandemic has actually made things difficult for people as far as unemployment and as far as businesses being successful, you can actually make a hand wash with chamomile just by boiling the flowers and rinsing it over your hands and manifesting money. It's a magical use. But as far as the medicinal use, chamomile has amazing powers to help you get rest, to let you go into a dreamlike state, and to help you relax after a long day of dealing with collective stress. Because let's be real, everybody needs that. Insomnia can also happen due to the collective stress, if you will. And so chamomile is one of those really great herbs for that. Roses. Okay, so self-love and roses. We really want to go more for pink roses, but any rose will do. Roses have an anti-inflammatory property medicinally. So roses and rose petals are fantastic, and they have an astringent property as well. So if you want to do a little self-pampering, I wanted to point out too that the Witch Depot actually made this hydrosol of love, and it is made out of pink roses. And basically it's distilled and then put with a little bit of grain alcohol to make it stable. And we've done that for Self-Love September. And so, yeah, I like that for your pampering. You can also make a rose water just to spray around your home and kind of remind yourself of why you need self-love and why you need a little bit of extra help during these times, because we can kind of lose the individual sense of self and kind of neglect ourselves when we're really stressed out. So that's a great idea. Oh, and rose hips, they are the fruit of the rose, and they're an excellent source of vitamin C, which will, of course, help your immune system during a time of a pandemic. Now, I want to mention here that all herbs are just a support system, and they are not for primary, they're not a replacement for primary care. So, also want to talk about lemon balm. Lemon balm is one of my favorites. The ancient Greeks called priestesses of Aphrodite Melissa. And so Melissa was actually the name of lemon balm scientifically. Melissa officinalis, I think is what it's called. So lemon balm is great in a tea. It's also really great in tinctures if you want to use that for magical purposes or not so magical purposes, you know, just to enjoy as you will. A wide variety of ailments for lemon balm are cured. So fever, depression, nervous tension, digestive aid, headaches, menstrual cramps, and heart spasms. It acts as a sedative and lowers blood pressure. So it's gentle, but it's potent. So it's great because you can use it on elderly people or young people. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antihistamine. It truly does it all. So lemon balm is one of those that I like to use in a lot of blends. Peppermint. Okay, magical uses. I've had a bit of debate about this one. Sleep, dreaming, third eye, prosperity, cleansing, healing, divination. I like to use peppermint for its medicinal uses because it aids in digestion, it reduces tension, and it's one of those that when combined in a tea or by itself in a tea really just produces great effects. It also, like rosemary, can be used as an oil to recall memory. There was this thing a long time ago when I was little about eating a peppermint while you study so that when you take the test you're eating a peppermint and you have recall. So I think it's because it's more camphorous and it has that appeal and that quality. So I would like to share my tea recipe, which is top secret, but you know, here we go. It's 2 parts peppermint, 1 part lemon balm, and 1 part chamomile. Seems really simple, but it's used for dreaming, and it's used for digestion, and it's used for a wide variety of purposes. Not to mention it helps you get really hydrated if you have more than like 2 cups a day. So we like to stay hydrated and fresh during the pandemic. And one that I'd like to talk about specifically because it's native to a lot of gardens here, and people seem to kind of have it in their front yard, is passion flower. Passion flower is fantastic for depression. It's also great at dealing with anxiety, insomnia, and withdrawal. And its magical uses are attracting friendship and prosperity. So we really want to be a close-knit community, even though we're socially distanced, and even though we're all speaking over Zoom. So the magical uses are actually kind of handy there. And when you take from a plant in your front yard, you want to make sure to honor that plant and say thank you for your gift, and thank you for your properties that you're giving us, thank you for your vibrations that you're giving us. It is a connection between spirit and earth, and that's super important. One thing that I saw Scott Cunningham do was that he put an amethyst below a plant before he harvested it. And he was very grateful and expressed his thanks to the plant. And that became sort of a ritual in and of itself. So that's lovely. And one other that I'd like to discuss is lavender. Pretty common, except it's difficult to grow in our arid, or not our arid climate, our humid climate. Lavender typically requires an arid climate. And so you'll see people trying to ambitiously start these lavender plants, and it just epically fails sometimes. But the magical uses are dream magic, sleep magic, and self-love. The medicinal uses are that it's calming, and it acts as almost, I don't want to say it's a nervine because that's not my personal experience, but it does create an aura of just peace. And that's really what we're looking for, right? So, right now a lot of people in a time of uncertainty and revolution in this country are out protesting and taking to the streets. The important thing about that, so let me go back. I actually did a workshop here at the Witch Depot called A Witch's Guide to Activism. And in that, we had a section on herbalism and how to really take care of yourself, because after a protest, you can sort of get this stress that just manifests in your body, and it makes you very irritable. It causes you to lose sleep. You may have an appetite problem. You may be eating too much, too little. So it's important to check in with yourself if you're out protesting, or even if you're a social media, kind of activist. You really will kind of take on stress and, negative energy. So how do we address that? A good formula for supporting the nerves and relieving stress is equal parts skullcap, lavender, and oat straw. I would recommend doing that as a tincture or a tea. And of course with a tincture, when you create a tincture, you're not drowning the herbs in Everclear. What you're doing is you're barely covering them and shaking them every day, keeping it in a dark, cool place, and shaking it every day for 2 weeks. And then you strain the herbs out. And then there you have your tincture. Another great one is nettle tea. So nettle tea are just a great all-around support plant. They are fantastic. Nettles are great for making sure that you are, how do I put this? It's a mood stabilizer. It helps your immune system. It helps your body kind of work out extra stress. So I would recommend nettle tea. It can calm you down and support your body in returning to its regular strong self. So especially if you've been hitting the streets, make sure that you're drinking your nettle tea. A couple of things that I'd like to talk about as far as our books that we have available at the Witch Depot is Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. I call it the Bible. It might be a little bit sacrilegious, but don't take Cunningham's word for it. That's his mantra. Find a good book like this one and then go through. Let's say I open to Lotus. So we here at the Witch Depot have Blue Lotus. My experience with Blue Lotus has been more about helping in divination. But Cunningham says that it's for protection and lock opening. And yeah. So you just find something, you work with it, and I recommend keeping a journal, especially. And then the complete book of incense, oils, and brews. This is more of the manufacturing rather than the studying. But it's also by Scott Cunningham. And we have both of these books currently in stock at the Witch Depot. And we just had an event called Self-Love September. And I've already mentioned the hydrosol, but this is a little spell bottle. And you keep this on your altar, and it's got self-love flowers like jasmine, rose, lavender, and a little cinnamon to spice things up, So it's all good. And one more that I would like to review before I let you guys go is butterfly pea flower tea. So this is the herb. It's butterfly pea flower, and it actually makes a blue tea. Now, the cool thing about it is that it's obviously for transformation, because once you add lemon, it goes from this deep blue to more of a fuchsia purple, right? So we want to talk about this time of collective stress and how we're all dealing with things that are new and a new way of life, and how that can be symbolic of transformation. Well, if you take about this much, about 2 teaspoons, put it in your tea strainer, or if you have a little ball, or if you just want to make it with hot water and then strain it with a fine mesh strainer, you can kind of experience that on your own. But it also has support for depression, alleviating anxiety, and regulating the nervous system. So butterfly pea flower is something that we have new in stock. So come see us and get some yourself. That's pretty much it. That's all I have for you. But I really appreciate everybody's time. And yeah, like I said, not a certified herbalist, not a doctor. Please check with your doctor for any type of herbs that may conflict with your medication or pre-existing health conditions. Thanks.